I never thought a work trip could, completely wreck everything I'd built. Hi, I'm Kate and I'm 36 years old. Looking back, I can see now how fragile my perfect little world was, how one stupid decision could just, blow up years of marriage, trust, and carefully constructed appearances. Ryan and I had been married for 12 years. On the outside, we looked like the classic suburban couple. 2 kids. A gorgeous colonial house in a quiet neighborhood. He had his corporate job and I managed the house. But what people didn't see were the cracks. I've always been kind of impulsive, not in some dramatic over-the-top way, but in those little decisions I'd make without really thinking. Like spontaneous shopping sprees or booking a last-minute girls' weekend or, in this case, a work conference that turned out to be not so professional. Our kids, Caleb, who's 9, and Ava, who's 6, had no idea how much was about to change. I mean, they were my whole world, but somehow I just forgot that. In one dumb moment of weakness, or what I kept telling myself was just excitement. Conference was in Chicago, or, that's what I told Ryan. I'd been feeling suffocated, trapped in this never-ending cycle of being a mom and a wife. I just wanted something, anything, that felt like the old me. The me before kids, before endless laundry, school lunches, and PTA meetings. What started as harmless flirting with a guy I met at the hotel bar, quickly turned into something else. I knew it was wrong. I knew it. But in that moment, I didn't care. The weeks after Ryan found out were a blur. There were tense silences, awkward small talk when the kids were around, and hushed conversations behind closed doors. Ryan was methodical about everything. He started gathering financial documents, consulting with a lawyer, and planning his next moves. And me? I had no clue how vulnerable I actually was. Being a stay-at-home mom meant I had no real income of my own. Every dollar we had, every credit card, every bill, every grocery run, it was all under Ryan's name. I'd spent so much time trying to keep up this perfect suburban life that I never stopped to think about what would happen if it all fell apart. And Jake? Yeah, he was long gone by then. Those, passionate moments in Chicago? They felt like, some distant, embarrassing dream. Jake didn't want messy divorces or kids or any of the real-life complications I came with. Guys like him are great at excitement, but, they're terrible at consequences. Ryan had always been a good provider. He's the dependable type, A solid, reliable finance guy who worked long hours but made sure we never wanted for anything. But dependable wasn't exciting. Solid didn't make my heart race. Jake was different. He was 40, a freelance photographer with that whole effortless charm thing going on. When he looked at me, I wasn't just Ryan's wife or Caleb and Ava's mom. I was Kate, desirable, interesting. That first night with Jake? I told myself it was just drinks, just a harmless conversation. But, we both knew where it was heading. The spark between us was, undeniable. And I made a choice that night, a choice I knew would change everything. I didn't plan on Ryan finding out. I mean, who does, right? I thought I was being careful. I used burner apps, made fake email accounts, and made sure to delete every single text. But, something about the way I was acting must have tipped him off. The night it all came crashing down, I was folding laundry when Ryan walked in. His face was, different, calm, but with this cold intensity I'd never seen before. "We need to talk," he said. Those 4 words are never a good sign in a marriage. He tracked my phone's location. He knew about the hotel. He knew about Jake. Somehow he even had screenshots, messages, receipts, proof of everything. The carefully constructed lie I'd been living? Yeah, it fell apart in seconds. "How long?" he asked, his voice eerily quiet. I couldn't even look at him. Kids were in the next room watching cartoons, completely clueless that a bomb was about to go off in our living room. After that, Ryan moved into the guest room. Kids noticed something was off, but we, kept up appearances. Family dinners turned into awkward silences, with Caleb and Ava chattering away, completely oblivious to the earthquake about to hit their lives. One morning, I found a stack of papers on the kitchen counter. Divorce documents. Neatly organized. Very Ryan. He'd already talked to a lawyer, already figured out custody, already planned how to divide everything. That's when it hit me how badly I'd miscalculated everything. My impulsive decision. My belief that I could have something exciting without consequences. It was all unraveling. The scariest part? I was completely dependent on Ryan. Like every single dollar came from him. My mom had always warned me about stuff like this. Never put all your eggs in one basket, she'd say. But, I'd just roll my eyes, convinced I had it all under control. Now her words echoed in my head like, some cruel reminder of just how naive I'd been. Ryan was so calculated. He froze our joint accounts, spoke with financial advisors, and, made sure to protect everything he could. That's when I realized I didn't even have my own credit history. Years of being a stay-at-home mom had made me, financially invisible. Kids, well, they started noticing more. Ava would draw these heartbreaking family pictures where Ryan and I were, separated by these huge spaces. Caleb got quieter, more withdrawn. His grades started slipping, and he'd get into fights at school. I knew I wasn't just breaking my marriage. I was, tearing apart our entire family. Jake? He was nothing but a distant memory by then. Those stolen moments in Chicago now felt like, the most ridiculous, embarrassing fantasy. He didn't want messy. He didn't want 2 kids and a wife with a life unraveling around her. Guys like Jake? They're great at creating excitement, but they're, absolutely useless when it comes to handling real-life fallout. One morning, Ryan handed me the divorce papers at breakfast. Yeah, right in front of the kids. His calm was honestly scarier than if he'd yelled. It was cold, calculated, like he'd already made up his mind. "I want full custody," he said, his voice so quiet it sent chills down my spine. "Your mistake changes everything." Mistake. That word made my affair sound like I'd, just spilled coffee on his favorite shirt or something. But we both knew it was so much more than that. The first meeting with Ryan's lawyer was a wake-up call I wasn't ready for. I sat there, feeling small, exposed, as they, picked apart my life like I was some kind of liability. My ignorance about our finances? Painfully obvious. I didn't know anything about our investments, real estate, even the details of our bank accounts. Ryan had always handled all of that. And honestly, I'd been happy to just live in our little bubble of suburban comfort. "You need to get a job," Ryan told me one night. His tone was matter-of-fact, almost like a challenge. The thing is, I hadn't worked a real job in, over 9 years. The last thing on my resume was a part-time gig as a marketing assistant, before Caleb was even born. Kids were struggling. Ava would randomly burst into tears, asking why Daddy wasn't sleeping in the same room anymore. Caleb's behavior just kept getting worse. Fights at school. Barely speaking to me at home. His grades were tanking, and it was clear he was, totally checked out. I knew it was all my fault. But admitting that out loud? Yeah, I wasn't ready for that yet. My family wasn't exactly supportive either. "You made your bed, Kate," my mom said the one time I called her for advice. "Now you've got to lie in it." Maria, my sister, was the only one who even tried to understand. "It's not just about the affair," she told me one night. "It's about years of feeling invisible. Losing yourself in a marriage where you had no identity." She wasn't wrong. But understanding it didn't, make the consequences any easier. The final court hearing was, honestly, a blur. Ryan sat across from me, calm and composed, like he'd already won before we even walked in. And me? I felt like I was drowning. The judge's words cut through me like a knife. Limited visitation. Supervised visits. Proof of stability through counseling and steady employment. I lost nearly everything. Our beautiful colonial house? It was going on the market. Ryan got primary custody of Caleb and Ava. I was left with every other weekend and supervised visits. Jake? Yeah, he was long gone. No support, no reassurance, nothing. Those stolen moments in Chicago? They weren't just embarrassing now, they were like the most expensive mistake of my life. Ryan didn't rub it in. He didn't have to. His victory was in the quiet, methodical way he rebuilt our family's life without me. He hired a full-time nanny, put the kids in therapy, and created a stable, structured environment. It wasn't just for the court, it was for Caleb and Ava. And, it worked. My first apartment was tiny. A cramped little one-bedroom. A far cry from the six-bedroom house we used to have. Every other weekend, I'd see Caleb and Ava. They were careful around me like they were, measuring their words and their affection. It was heartbreaking, but I couldn't blame them. The lesson wasn't just about the affair. It was about value. The value of trust, of family, of making thoughtful choices. Ryan didn't just win the divorce. He earned the respect of our kids by showing them what real responsibility looks like. I lost everything because I chased a moment of excitement. He gained everything by choosing stability. And honestly, that's a lesson I'll carry with me forever.